So if you are not prepared as a buyer to come and sit at the table with a buying agent and ask these questions, you might take a little bit longer to go through the home buying process.
Might be some added frustration, stress,
I think so.
Miscommunication. I definitely agree with you.
Welcome to Waypoint Real Talk, where we discuss real estate and your home. Let's get started with your hosts, Aaron Shishilla and Austin Hines.
Hello and welcome to Waypoint Real Talk. My name is Aaron, and today we have an awesome podcast for you today with a guest that we've had on before, Christian Sidwell. Welcome, Christian.
Thank you.
Yeah, so tell me a little bit about yourself. What makes you so awesome?
That's a long podcast.
We can go through the whole list. Don't worry. I got all day. Brief notes, cliff notes.
Cliff notes.
Yeah.
Gosh, I'm pretty gregarious.
Yes, that's a big
fun.
word.
Huge. I like people.
You like people.
I like dogs.
And you like to...
I like soccer. I like wine. I like to cook. I like to travel. That's
right.
Pretty interesting.
And you have your own... Well, you're on a show.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Career stuff.
Okay. So, so I'm the team leader of the Journey Partners team at Berkshire Hathaway. Mm-hmm. I've been selling real estate 12 years, California, and now Florida. Yes, and I am a host of a TV show called American Dream TV.
Nice. Tell me a little bit about that. What do you do?
American Dream TV focuses on lifestyle, culture, and real estate in your city. And so I am what's called a power player, which is a top agent in my market, which is St. Pete.
Nice.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about you coming over to St. Pete, because you were actually on a previous podcast with us.
Correct.
And we kind of went through your background story and talked about new agents going into different markets and how they can quickly become top producers in those new markets.
Right.
So tell me a little bit about that background and where you are now.
So 8 years of selling real estate in California, and as I mentioned, 4 years here in Florida. Getting licensed and being licensed in 2 states it's interesting. It just shows there's a lot of differences from a standpoint of the whole transaction, even the contract itself, and some of the concerns that you have at a home in a completely different market, completely different state. It varies, right? Mm-hmm. So here we always worry about wind, water, and termites. Those are the 3 things to worry about in Florida. We didn't have so much of that issue in California. It was more like fires, earthquake. Those are the things you really worry about, right? Cinder block construction is very prominent here, not so much in California. It is out there, somewhat, but it's much more prevalent here. So just the style of construction. So there's a lot of differences when working in 2 different markets, but it actually makes me more knowledgeable and more well-versed, more well-rounded. I can offer a lot of different experiences to my clients. It's an advantage, I think.
I think it's a huge advantage. I mean, and you've had great success here in Pinellas County and St. Pete. Yeah. Because you're one of the top producers for the whole Pinellas County.
Yeah, so. It's great. It's fun. I enjoy it. And I love meeting other agents and, everyone within the business, from inspection to title and mortgage. I think that again, helps me being more well-rounded. When you're connected to so many different people and different professions, you become more of an advantage to your buyer and or seller.
Yeah, completely agree. So getting into today's topic, which is questions that buyers should ask their real estate agent.
Correct.
Noting at the beginning, what kind of questions should a buyer ask when they're interviewing real estate agents?
I think it's important that buyers know what is the first step in the home buying process. And for me, and it should be for most agents, is pre-qualification. You got to talk to a lender. You have to know what you can qualify for. Once you understand what you can qualify for, what's going to be your monthly outlay of expenses, what the interest rate is, what are all those nuances of a product and financing, whether it's a 15-year or a 30-year, what's going to be best for you. First step in the home buying process, pre-approval. And then you can talk to an agent. Now you can do that simultaneously if you're talking to multiple agents or multiple lenders to get Then you can start the process of interviewing agents. then I guess the first question is if you as a buyer know exactly where you want to purchase a particular city, maybe even a particular neighborhood, then you would ask that agent, how many transactions have you done in this particular city or in this particular neighborhood? And that will be helpful, because having a well-versed, knowledgeable, maybe neighborhood expert is really the agent you want to work with. So again, let me rephrase it. Let me just stress that is if you as a buyer, you know exactly the city and the neighborhood you want to buy, then I would interview agents in that particular area. Sometimes buyers don't really know exactly where they want to actually buy. So for instance, my team does a lot with corporate relocation, and they may be out of state. And so part of our job is educating them on a larger area. So I have some people who are considering Hillsborough County versus Pinellas County versus even Manatee, right? So that sometimes we don't really know the nuances of every single neighborhood in all those three counties. It's somewhat challenging to do that. So what we try to do is just to do a general area tour. We try to just give them the basis, kind of the understanding of exactly what they can expect, what type of lifestyle they will lead if they're in Hillsborough County, Pinellas County, or Manatee County. So we try to stay abreast of what's happening, even from new construction, even from a political standpoint, what's happening in that particular county. Just so we have a basic idea so we can kind of guide our clients in that certain direction. So I guess the second thing would be is how many transactions have you done in a particular 12-month year, 12-month calendar year? What is your production? And then you may even want to ask specifically, have you done single family or condos or townhomes? Do you focus on new construction or older construction?
So what numbers should we be focusing on, and how do you know that agent's experienced in that neighborhood?
Well, again, it's really about the buyer. What do they need, right? So if they're looking at new construction only, and they're looking at, under 300,000, then that's really the agent you want to work with, someone who has that type of experience. If someone says, oh, I do $1 million plus waterfront only, is that the agent you want to work with? I don't think so. Right. So and then if you are just the opposite, right? Let's say you are $1 million waterfront property buyer, and an agent's like, I do new construction in, Hillsborough County. There's not a lot of waterfront in Hillsborough.
Right.
There are some, let me say that, but there's going to be a lot more in Pinellas County, right? So maybe there should be an agent that's going to be more focused on the needs of that buyer. So do some critical thinking as a buyer of who you are, what kind of buyer you're going to be, what kind of lifestyle you want to live, and kind of an area you want to live in. And then that's going to really help you ask the right questions of that agent to really know you're working with the right agent for you. And then, of course, you got to have camaraderie. You got to like the person. That's important.
Yeah.
Because you will spend a lot of time with your agent. There's going to be a lot of communication back and forth. And you have to know that they're professional, they're friendly, and that they're fun to be around if that's the type of personality you want to work with. Because truly, as a buyer, you are hiring your agent. Just as you are as a seller, you're hiring the agent to do a job for you. I think it's important that every buying agent should ask their buyer to sign what's called a buyer-broker agreement. That means the buyer's making a commitment to work with this agent only. So they can go into detail, and the buying agent can tell you exactly what is required by that. It is a signed document that can be broken at any time for right reasons. So if you have a buyer, you as a buyer feel that they're not communicating properly, they're not meeting your needs properly, then you can, in writing, say, I want to discontinue our relationship and I want to, end our buyer-broker agreement.
I've never heard of that.
Buyer-broker agreement is important because as a buying agent, you do not get commission until you actually close escrow. So think about all the time and effort that agent is giving to you as a buyer. Let's say your buying process took you 6 months. So that agent is giving you their expertise in that market. They're helping you understand the whole buying process. They may even write an offer for you, get you into contract, and go through that escrow period, and will not get paid until you actually close escrow. So a buyer-broker agreement says, Mr. or Mrs. Buyer, I'm willing to represent you in this transaction, but understand that I want you to commit to only working with me. There's a myth out there that buyers think if I'm working with multiple agents, then I'm going to have twice as much opportunity to find the right house. That's not the case. Making a commitment to work with one buying agent who knows exactly what your needs are and is out in the market looking and searching on your behalf, that's the agent you want.
Right.
And so then the agent says to you, I want you to make a commitment to me because I'm making a commitment to work with you. So it's a mutual agreement. And there are requirements that state exactly what you as the buying agent has to fulfill. And then there's some small requirements as the buyer that you make a commitment to work with them.
So you start the process, you choose your agent, right? They make you sign, or you sign this document, this buyer broker, potentially.
Yeah.
What are some of the questions, or what's the process like to where you could lead to the questions that you should ask your real estate agent?
So let's take that scenario that we've already gotten pre-approved with a lender. You've already gone through the buyer interview. You've chosen your agent. So now we're starting the fun process of going out and shopping, right? Looking at houses. So number one, I would say, what is the market like in this particular neighborhood? That's what I think a buyer should ask the agent. What is it? Tell me about what is the lifestyle that I live in this particular neighborhood?
How many are being sold, perhaps?
Yeah, get some statistics. Are they going over asking? Are they going just below asking? And how much below? What's the inventory specifically in this neighborhood? So I think that would be the first question that you would ask, a buyer would ask their agent.
And why does that matter necessarily, like how hot the market is? I mean, I guess as a buyer, you would more so understand what the cost would be to purchase that home, or...
So that'll give you an idea. Let's say that the majority of the homes in that particular neighborhood were listed and there's an important statistic to look in such a tight market that we're in today, which is very low inventory and it's a seller's market. You look at list price to sale price and you look at that percentage. So if the average in that neighborhood is 1.2, that means that everything in that neighborhood is going over asking.
Oh.
Or if it's 96 or 97, so that's 97% to the list price.
Gotcha.
So it's 3% less than asking.
Yeah.
You can reverse that.
Okay.
Or 97% to the asking price. So that'll give you an idea of how competitive you as a buyer have to be.
Yeah.
So let's use a scenario. Let's say you're qualified to get a loan for $250,000. And you have $50,000 for your down payment. So that means you could potentially purchase up to $265,000 to $275,000 because you want to leave a little bit of money for your closing costs, inspections, etc., other costs that go along with that. So in that scenario, you can then start looking at that neighborhood. And if everything is going over asking, then you probably shouldn't be looking at homes at $275,000. You should be looking at homes around $245,000. Maybe $235,000, knowing that you may have to go over the asking price to be competitive in that market.
Right.
So that's a strategy, and you have to know that. And that's a discussion as a buyer you should have very frankly with your buying agent. So knowing the trend in that neighborhood.
Yeah, for sure. I think
key.
I think especially right now with the market that we're in, knowing that information would help you just instantly know if the offer that you're making is worth it or not.
Absolutely. And when you're going up multiple offer potentially,
right,
you got to be ready to step up to the plate and maybe go over asking.
Yeah.
So number one is, what's the market like in this particular neighborhood? Number two is, what's the particular property worth in this market, right? So kind of like they blend into one another. But I think that's an important question. What do you think it's worth? And since we are in a seller's market and we have low inventory, you may end up going over the list price. You may have a multiple offer situation. You may try to beat out other people, and you may be going a little bit above what the average price point is in that particular neighborhood. But be prepared for that. That could be the case. So I think that that's important to know.
Do you think that's okay to do? To like go above the asking price or whatever? And like, I guess there's a lot of hesitation when people say like, oh, the market's so hot, like I'm not going to buy right now. But at the same time, I mean, prices are always going to increase. So it's like
there's always going to be an entry point no matter what.
Right.
In anything we do, there's always going to be an entry point no matter what you do. So instead of sitting on the sidelines and watching everyone else do what they do, you got to jump in. So you have to jump in at some point. That could be for really anything in life.
Right.
But specifically in real estate.
Yeah.
I think you really have to know that you're going to make a purchase. You got to make a purchase. You got to get in this market.
Yeah.
There's a couple other ones I think are important.
Yeah.
How long has the property been on the market? I think that's an important question. Why are the sellers selling this home? And then how long have they occupied the property? That's going to be important too as a buyer. Has it been owner occupied or has it been in an investment? That's going to be important to kind of know the health and well-being of the home. Right. How well it was cared for. So I think that's going to be important as a buyer. If you're not a buyer that really wants to tackle any projects, then you may want to have a home that's really, really maintained and is in tip-top shape. So whatever your comfort level is as a buyer, I think that's important to know, how long they've been in the house and how has it been well cared for. So going back to the market, what's the average sale price to list price? Remember I told you about that earlier?
Yeah,
That's important. So if the trend in that neighborhood is 5% less than asking, then you know that you can come in 5% less than asking too, as well. This is a good one. I thought about this too. How often has this particular property been sold? Like, has it transactioned like 3 times in the last 10 years? That would be interesting to know too. Or has this been owned by one family for 40 years?
Right.
That'll be interesting to know. So I think that is something that, as a buyer, I would ask your agent that question. Another one is, this can be, maybe the buying agent would ask this of the listing agent, but when do the sellers need to actually vacate? Right?
Gotcha.
Is it a job transfer? So they're looking to move pretty quickly. That may help in your strategy. So I think the buyer should ask their buying agent, how quickly does this seller have to sell? That's important. How much are the property taxes in this particular neighborhood, in this particular city, county? Those are important. And then what are the utilities that I can expect to pay on this particular property? I think that's important for a buyer to know. And then, does the seller have any documentation on the mechanicals and all the appliances? There's so many times as a listing agent, I've gone in to represent the seller, and they're two different spectrums. One is extremely organized, has a file folder of every single mechanical document, the receipt when they bought the AC, when it was installed, the make, model of that AC unit, the dishwasher. They're extremely organized. That is a dream, because then you know that house is going to be well maintained. So then when you go to your buyer, you can say, here's everything. The buyer's going to love that, to walk into a home and see it that organized. So asking, does the seller have any mechanical documentation and anything about the appliances? I think that's important. So I think those are the off the top of my head, I was thinking these are probably the 10 top questions that you would want to ask your buyer's agent.
I think those top 10 questions, and you can tell me, Austin, that just arming yourself with those 10, I think you're going to be much more well prepared and more confident with the deal that you put in. So it kind of seems like if you don't ask those questions, you might be going a little bit in blind of, is my offer competitive? Is everything like okay with the home? Why are they selling? I think that's so important. Why are they selling? When do they need to leave? Because then you kind of get in the mindset of what they're thinking and what their needs are.
Right. What is the trend in this market? Are they going over asking or below asking, and how much below? Then that also is helpful. How long have they lived in the property?
Yeah.
And then did they have any of the documentation of the health and well-being of the property? I think that's important. So now, let me not. I agree with you, and I think that is what you said is very, very true. That a buyer should be equipped with these 10 questions to ask their buying agent.
Mm-hmm.
But if they don't, they can still get into the process. They'll figure all this out. But what will happen, it'll take a longer period of time to get through this transaction. And there could be some frustration along the way.
Yeah.
Right? So if you are not prepared as a buyer to come and sit at the table with a buying agent and ask these questions, you might take a little bit longer to go through the home buying process.
Might be some added frustration, stress,
I think so.
Miscommunication. I definitely agree with you.
I think so. So I would say, buyers who are out there and you really want to buy a home, do a little bit of your homework up front by getting a pre-approval, taking some of these questions, and interviewing agents to make sure you have the right fit with that agent before you actually make a decision.
Yeah.
Because it's so easy to go out and start looking at property. That's the fun part. Let's go to open houses. What are we doing today? Let's go to open house. Well, we're kind of thinking about buying. And that's okay. When I host open houses at my listings, I meet people in different stages in the process all the time. And so I'm not saying don't do that as a buyer. I'm just saying it may take you a little bit longer and there could be some more frustrations if you're not prepared from the get-go.
Right. So what I think we're going to do is we're going to take that sheet and we're going to put it in a blog post on our website. So everyone that is listening, or if you're watching on camera here, they can read along with that, print it out, whatever it is, so that way they can arm themselves with that information. We'll leave your information in the description below, but where can people find you, Christian?
Facebook. We have a great social media presence. So Facebook, you can look up Journey Partners Team. We also have an Instagram, same thing, Journey Partners Team. You can check out AmericanDreamNetworkTV.com, which is the website for the TV show. You can also stream that show on Thursday nights at 7 or Sunday at 12 noon. And that's on Roku, Amazon, and Apple TV. And again, it's American Dream TV. And then look for Tampa Beaches. And that's me, St. Pete.
Nice, Christian.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming again to the podcast.
Yeah, happy to do it.
Yeah, it was awesome to have you on the first time when we were just getting started, and now to where we are today in this little studio/office location. Cool. Yeah.
I appreciate
thank you so much for joining.
Absolutely. I enjoy it.
Yeah. Great.
Thanks.